Hey, welcome to the Burning River Browns Talk. Thank you for joining me tonight. I am Lou Marconi at L Marconi251 on Instagram, and just to complicate stuff, L Marconi 1973 on Twitter X. This is the Burning River Browns Talk, is a part of the Fanatical Elves Network, which is a subsidiary of the Fans First Sports Network. In case you notice, I'm not wearing my usual Cleveland Browns hat. That's right. Tonight is a special occasion. It's a special occasion, and I'm also wearing the T-shirt from Homage commen- commemorating tonight the anniversary of the 50th anniversary of the 10-cent beer night riot. That's what we're going to talk about, and I'm going to be happy to go over the history of it and what was behind it and how it happened, and really the thinking behind it or lack thereof. But before we go any further, without any further ado, the Fanatical Elves have bills to pay, so I need to pause for a word from our sponsors. All right, great. Thank you very much. We're back. Okay, let's talk about this infamous night in Cleveland sports history. Yes, this is the 70s Cleveland Indians hat with the crooked C and the 10-cent beer night. Okay, the Indians really weren't that good of a team back then. I mean, basically throughout the 70s and 80s, up until about the mid 90s, they sucked. They were last place team. They're never really any good. So they would have to do promotional things to get people to come out to the games. Usually they'd have specials going on, or they would have like a San Diego chicken would come to watch the game, or there was something, usually if there was a good team, you came, like if they were playing the Yankees or somebody like that, you'd want to come in. But this time, they decided, hey, let's have a promotional beer night where we only charge beer at 10 cents a pop. That's right, not a pop, actual drink pop, but 10 cents per beer. And you were allowed to buy six per person. 60 cents, you can buy six beers, down them, and go back and get six more. That's insane. That was just insane. Usually they average 3 to 4,000 people a game at that time. There was 25,000 people that showed up. Now that was the promotional idea. They were playing the Texas Rangers that night. The Texas Rangers manager was a hothead, an infamous hothead named Billy Martin. Some of you might be too young to remember him or know who he was. He was notorious for like getting angry at umpires and just doing things and just being a jerk. So he was the manager of the Rangers at the time. Earlier in the season, there was an incident at a game in Texas where I think the Cleveland players slid into second base a little bit too hard to the shortstop covering the bag. So, of course, that led to a lot of inside pitches, maybe some close up to the head, a little bit high and tight, high and inside pitches, which some people might have some things might have come to blows from that. But that's baseball. That's common. It was even more common in the 70s than probably today, or even in the 80s. But they're coming into town, and Billy Martin was running his mouth. Billy Martin was starting things. Not blaming it on Billy Martin. Don't get me wrong, but um, I guess people were on the sports talk radio at the time. Was Pete Franklin was a guy at the time, and I'm thinking of who's the other one? Bruce Drennan. He's still on sometimes. I think he's on some things, and he was saying we should all go down there and make sure to stick it in his ear, stuff like that. Well, people were able to show up hours before the game, pay 10 cents a beer, and drink themselves into an oblivion. Yes, the game got out of hand. There was incidents of people running on the field. There was incidents of fights in the stands. There was incidents. I guess a woman came out and flashed the crowd, and she was taken off. There was a streaker that ended up on the field, and he ended up running away, and he got away because nobody wanted to tackle him. Um, that's what you get when you do that. And it got to the point where they had to stop play a couple times from fans running on the field. Well, a fan ran on the field in the ninth inning, and the Indians just tied it. It was like a 5-5 game, if my memory serves me correctly. And a fan tried to take the baseball cap off of a Rangers outfielder that ran onto the field. And the Ranger outfielder was like pushing him away and said no. Well, it looked like a fight was about to start. So the Rangers cleared out of the dugout, and I think even Billy Martin grabbed a bat and they were ready to start fighting. So then when the Rangers come out, more fans come out, the Indians come out, and everything just got out of hand and the riot started. It got to the point where the home plate umpire was injured. The the players on both teams were injured. There was no deaths that were reported, thank God, because that would have been, it would have been a horrible, horrible situation if something like that happened. So no deaths were reported, but there was about 9 people reportedly had to go to the emergency room, and there were 19 people arrested. Well, keep in mind they only had the Cleveland police had to be called. They had to call in a SWAT team to break it up, from what I understood, because they only had 50 security guards for 25,000 people. What are you going to do? Anyway, it was a black eye on the city of Cleveland, and keep in mind this was 1974, so this type of thing, it's if it was like 1994, 2004, 2014, it would have been all over Sports Center, all over the internet in 2014. It would have been all over the internet if it was 2024. It'd be on Twitter and social media and everywhere, and people would be reacting and saying their 2 cents. But back then, it happened. You heard about it on the news, you heard about it on the radio. There's probably some national media reports about it, but they didn't have cable TV like they did back then. They didn't have the internet back then. It wasn't it wasn't that big of a deal, and the Indians had to forfeit the game. They forfeited the game to the Rangers, and I do remember knowing that the Indians did say they would never do that again. So 50 years later, they still haven't done it. So anyway, it's a crazy night. And just so you know, I mean, I don't remember that happening because I was 11 months old. It was about, yeah, 15 days away from my first birthday. But I do remember my father telling me stories about it because at that time he worked a second shift job at a plant in Brook Park, Ohio, called Clorox. There's a Clorox plant in Brook Park, and he had the radio on listening to the game while he was working. And he told me it sounded like absolute bedlam that was happening there. It was real crazy. So, yeah, it wasn't a good time. And you know what? Just letting people drink themselves into oblivion and go get rowdy at a sports game. It's not a good idea. And it is what it is. It happened. So yeah, 50th anniversary of 10-cent beer night. And I do know tonight there's a half hour special at 11:30 on Channel 8 about it on Fox 8. So you might want to check it out. You could learn something. Uh, Interesting fact, the first baseman for the Texas Rangers that night went on to play for the Cleveland Indians and manage the Cleveland Indians to 2 World Series appearances. That was Mike Hargrove. So a little bit interesting tidbit. Some Browns news. Hey, practicing again, looking good. I am hearing this about Stefanski and Barry's extensions. Basically, it's when the agent has time to get to it because the agents that are involved are busy signing other draft picks and players, and it's not really a big, huge priority thing that has to get done right now. They still have a full year on their contracts. I would say probably by training camp, it'll be taken care of, and we don't have to hear about it anymore. So Stefanski and Barry will be extended. It's not a big deal. And the other thing, Nick Chubb was on the practice field. Everything's looking good. Let's be patient with him. Let's be patient with Deshaun. There's no reason to rush anybody. It's still early June. And I'm excited. I'm excited for this team, and I'm even excited for this Cleveland baseball team because they won tonight 8-5. Fantastic. It was great. So you know what? And the city's very proud of these guys. I did talk about last night. When was the last time all three teams, Cavaliers, Indians, or the baseball team, and the Browns made the postseason in 1 year? Well, the Cavaliers just did it in 2024, and they won a playoff series. Cleveland baseball team is well on their way to doing that. They are. They are. This is a very big series. They won the first game in the very big series against the second place Kansas City Royals, which is huge. And now, hey, the Cleveland Browns stay healthy. Really, there's no excuse with this roster to not make the playoffs. So I'm very excited to be a part of this. I'm very excited to be a Cleveland sports fan, and I'm very excited to have you guys join me every night. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Fanatical Loves Network. We have great people providing great Browns content, and I also like to provide Cleveland sports talk. Content as well, because I'll talk about Cleveland sports in general. I'm also on here Friday nights at 9 o'clock with my friend, colleague, and I consider her family, Sherry from the Bougie Sports and the NEO Insiders. And we're going to have Terrell on as a guest. We're going to have a guest on from My Dog's podcast on Friday night. So be happy. Yeah, I'd be happy to join you. Comment. Hey, man, let's have a good time. We're going to talk about lots of things. Very excited to be a part of this. And what I'm going to tell you now is, hey, thank you for joining me. And always remember, when the river burns, it burns brown and orange. Have a great night. I'll see you tomorrow night at 9:30.